Hello, and welcome to Wesardry. Hello everyone. In this video I'm making a Blitz Bowl pitch. Blitz Bowl is a scaled down, little faster paced version of Blood Bowl. I've had several ideas for these different themed pitches, and this one was really fun to make. I used some materials I'm familiar with, some that I'm not. One of my subscribers had actually advised me on my grass video a technique that he used, and I think I screwed it up. So Roland, if you're watching this, you need to get a hold of me and tell me what I did wrong. And that's pretty much it. I hope you enjoy it. I hope you can glean some information from it, find it entertaining, and let's get on with it. So I started this project with this piece of MDF that I had marked out my grid pattern on. I'd scored it up some with a utility knife to help my materials adhere, and then I gave it a light dampening with a spray bottle before applying my ground texture from Nightmare Landscapes. When applying the ground texture, I used it very liberally. The amount I put on, I wasn't really concerned about it all being flat and even. My idea is that this is an overgrown crop field that now has been converted into an impromptu gridiron. So I was mainly just concerned with getting complete coverage. Next, I covered the ground texture with sawdust flocking. I have a 5-gallon bucket of this in my garage. I picked it up off a job site, and I run it through a screen to break it down into finer particles for applications such as this or on miniature bases. More Nightmare Landscapes basing materials were the next addition. These coconut fibers to add some more color and texture to represent brambles, briars, and overgrown grasses. And I also added some basing sand from Nightmare Landscapes for a little bit of grit and small rocks on the field. I also added some a little bit larger aggregate here and there on the field as well. Then it was time to color the flocking. I used Nightmare Landscapes Nightmare Green with glue and water mix in a spray bottle. The spray bottle didn't always want to cooperate with me and spray a fine mist, but I managed. This not only colored my flocking, but it also cemented my basing materials down. You'll notice I used Gorilla Tape to secure the perimeter of the MDF to the table in hopes of avoiding any warpage from the wetting and drying processes as I add my layers. I went pretty heavy with this mix to ensure that the sawdust was thoroughly drenched with glue as well saturated with the color from the paint. I then topped it off with some more of the Nightmare Landscapes coconut fiber basing material before leaving it to dry. I gave it a spritz of glue after it had dried overnight, and then I added some store-bought flocking, which I roughed up with my hand to increase its impact on the field, and I also added some more of the coconut fibers from Nightmare Landscapes. The fibers worked great in defining the edges as well as representing bare and or muddy patches on the field. Everything was coming together great so far and working just fine. But, as always it seems, the road was going to get curvy and bumpy. One of my subscribers, Roland Hersom, had commented on my grasses video that he uses a blender to chop up MDF and gets good grasses from that. Well, I got fluff. I'm not sure what I did wrong. I did use parts of the sheet that had gotten water damage, so maybe that's it? Not sure. Hopefully, Roland will help me out and tell me how I screwed up. But not to be deterred, I incorporated it into the project the best that I could, screening it into finer particles and fixing it down with glue mix. I hit another bumpy curve in the road when I realized that I had not counted my squares, and I'd actually left one of the end zones off. But I did have this fake grass stuff from Dollar Tree or the dollar store or something, and I hoped I could pull off a blend into the existing terrain. So with some double-sided tape and some strips of this new stuff, I got to work. The stuff was apparently made with some bits of yarn, and I'm not sure what else, but it rubbed off the burlap very easily. So chopping it up and tearing it up and blending it into the field was not much of a problem at all. But it didn't match the materials I'd used so far at all. So I needed to incorporate them into each other to get a cohesive and convincing look going. So I started with my failed MDF side project thingy as the first element to bridge that gap. As I applied it, I scratched and scraped away at the materials attached to the burlap to make gaps where I could insert some of the other basing products that I'd already used on the rest of the field. I gave it a quick spritz of glue water to have something other than the tape holding it onto the board. I then began to add more layers of basing materials. I used some random pieces of basing grasses that I'd made and had left over from other projects, bits from the burlap back stuff that I'd used on the end zone, as well as the materials that I'd already used. The idea being that if I swapped all these materials back and forth, I would create enough visual confusion that the sudden and apparent change at the one end of the field would just make sense. Obviously, the ground cover is erratic and diverse, but at one end of the field, a certain type of flora has monopolized the area and become more dense. And once again, after that step was completed, I was back to sealing it all in with a paint glue water mixture. I repeated the process of adding basing materials of various textures and colors, layering up and intermingling the materials, as well as adding pops of color of my own by adding paint when needed to the glue mix. Some of the larger pieces of material didn't like to adhere to the board all that well, but by surrounding them and or covering them with finer components, they worked well enough. Slowly, the wild overgrown farmer's field took shape and came to life. There are nice variations in the terrain and elevation, and I feel it gives it a natural and organic look. I'm sure I could have arrived at this same result faster than I did, but hey, this is my first one, and I had fun doing it. Plus, I needed a thick layer for my grid work. After all this had set, and after a couple applications of matte varnish, I used my Dremel Tools cutting wheel to scribe in the grid. It's well defined, yet subtle, and it blends into the playing field very well. And here it is, scribed and trimmed up. I have a name for it, but I'm not assigning it as of yet. I have a few accessories to make for it first. If you like this video, send me a like, please. Share, subscribe, please. And send me your comments. Let me know if you liked it. This was a fun build. I'll be making some more of these. And I'll make a video of the accessories that I make for this as well. Some of the stuff will be hazards that the players will hit when they're on the field. I'll be back before you know it with another video. Until then, make some magic happen. Thank you for watching this one. I really do appreciate it. And as always, I'm Wes, and this is Wesardry.